the more I look into it, the more I'm starting to believe that there is a serious problem, or there was a serious problem, with Mother Teresa and her charities. In fact, in my opinion being the key words, I think she was definitely implanted by the deep state. And I'm going to tell you why I think that. Because whatever you think they are, this deep state, this Illuminati, this shadow government, whoever it is, whatever it is, it clearly, one thing we can be assured about, it feeds off a couple different things. It feeds, especially that feeds off greed and money and things like that. But it also seems to feed off of suffering, like human suffering. And there are things that are, I find, quite alarming about the way Mother Teresa has been presented to us, to the public. It seemed more like a very carefully orchestrated front. Now, let's get into her background a little bit, because I've done more research. Now, she was born August 25th, 1910, in the town of, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Skopje in North Macedonia, which is just north of Greece. She lost her father at the age of 8, and a lot of people attribute this being the point in time when she started getting intensely involved in religion. I have no way to prove or disprove that. Anyways, in 1928, at the age of 18 years old, she decided to dedicate her life to religion and started to wanting to become a nun. And she joined the Sisters of Loretta in Ireland. She does have a different, and Teresa was the name she got when she first took her vows to become a nun. That's not her original name. Her original name, I'm not even going to try to pronounce. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. But, yeah, you can look it up if you want to. I can't pronounce that. But anyways, she very much wanted to learn English. She, at some point when she was becoming a nun, she wanted to be a missionary. That was like her main thing. She wanted to be a missionary. And she found it pertinent to learn the English language. And for some, there was this sense of urgency. Like, she couldn't quite learn it fast enough. Like, she was trying to, like, get to India because they spoke English where she was going. And it seemed like she couldn't speak English fast enough. But she also learned the language Bengali, which was another language of the locals where she was going to be a missionary at. So once she learned English and Bengali, she began teaching at St. Teresa's School. And that is where she first got the name, adopted the name from that place. And she officially becomes a nun, takes her vows on May 24th, 1931. And it appears that she may have taken her vows a second time, 6 years later in public. So it looks like she took her vows twice, which is kind of like what makes me think it's more of a show. Like, why take your vows a second time? Just for the world to see. That doesn't even really, like, you already took your vows. Isn't that supposed to be something between you and God? Anyways, 1943, the Bengal famine breaks out. And this is something that is supposed to have, like, really affected Mother Teresa when this happened. Like, this really got her into, like, her missionary work and, helping with the poor. In fact, she even, like, got in trouble with the church to stay and help with people with this famine and all this other stuff. They make it sound really fine and good. Like, she really put in a lot of service and sacrifice and all this other stuff. And I'm not trying to take that away. Maybe she did. But we find out later that she had the means to help them all a lot more. And we're going to get into, like, some of the conditions of, like, her charity places and, like, where she would... Because in 1950... she establishes what is called Missionaries of Charity. And it's a little vague, the purpose of this place. It's a little vague. It's basically just to kind of, like, help anyone who, like, needs it. Like, people who are poor or, starving, destitute. It's a little vague. So she starts that charity. And Missionaries of Charity is what it's called. And she won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1979, which is interesting. She won that in 1979, and she, like I talked about yesterday, she accepted many donations from many controversial people. We don't need to go over that again. Refer to my video from yesterday if you want to learn about like her associations with Robert Maxwell or Charles Keating or the former dictator of Haiti. You know, all these people she accepted money from. Yeah, I talked about that yesterday, so we're not going to talk about that again today. Really what I wanted to talk mainly about was there was a woman named Mary Loudon who come out and who had seen one of these places that one of Mother Teresa's, like, I don't even know what to call it. If you call it a hospital, a charity house, I really don't know what to call it, because it seemed to be like everything all into one. Because, like, they did adoptions, they fed the homeless, like, I mean, like, what the hell? They had, like, everything going on in these places. Well, Mary Loudon went to one of these places, and she went to the place where people who were dying that would go, I guess, like, the hospice part of the charity. And Mary Loudon claims that it looked just like a World War I, like, hospital facility. Like, there was, like, not enough supplies, it was dirty, and people were basically just, like, abandoned and, like, left to die without any dignity. It sounded really sad, and we'll get into, like, some of the other things that Mary Loudon said she had a problem with there. It was quite a few things, like one, like I just said. She said it looked like a World War I pop-up facility. She also said that apparently syringes were being reused, even, like, during the AIDS epidemic and pandemic, they were getting reused. So apparently things never got better from the 40s all the way to the 90s. They were still lacking resources. Another problem was that some of these patients were very sick and they had very compromised immune systems, and Mother Teresa would only, like, use cold water. Like, she would not spare the money it would take to have the resources to have hot water. So a lot of these people who were already suffering, would be made to take really freezing cold baths. And another thing, according to Mary Loudon, I have no way to prove this is according to Mary Loudon, because Mary Loudon, I'm not sure if she worked there, if she went there, I'm not sure what the deal is, but she's witnessed a lot. She claimed that there was a 15-year-old boy who came, who, according to Mary Loudon, could have been saved, but was left in the waiting room to die. And he did die. And this was something that Mary Loudon apparently, struggles with a lot. Oh yeah, another thing, the medications. Pain medicine was denied to people with cancer. People were dying, so there's no pain medicine distributed. And there was no anesthesia. And even when, like, amputating limbs. So it really was like one of those scenes from Gone with the Wind when they cut off, like, the people's legs and stuff, and there's no medicine, there's not even pain medicine. It sounds horrific. It sounds horrific. Oh, and one more thing that Mary Loudon said, and this does sound really unethical and wrong, was most of these patients in these charity places, whatever that it's called, were Muslim and or Hindu. And a lot of these people, when they were on their deathbed, Mother Teresa would baptize them without their consent. Can you imagine? Now, that is a much deeper conversation, but I don't feel like I should have to explain why that is so wrong and terrible to do that against someone's wishes, against their religious wishes. Anyway, so, like, basically these people had, like, zero dignity whatsoever. They had zero dignity. And my point is, it wasn't because there was, like, a lack of money. That was the point from yesterday's video. Mother Teresa had plenty of money. She had plenty of money. In fact, I even have a number. From the money she received from all those weird, shady associates, plus in other places, exceeded $30 million. Can you imagine how much better those places could have been. She could have got them new needles. They could have had warm water. They could have died in comfort and in peace. They could have been taken care of. Instead, she's out here gaslighting them. Like, suffering is a good thing. In fact, there's a quote that I want to show you here. Oh, this is a young Mother Teresa, by the way. I found a picture of her when she was young. Here's a quote from a speech she gave in 1997. She said, "The world is being much helped by the suffering of the poor people, and it is very beautiful for the poor to share their suffering with the passion of Christ." So basically, more suffering, more poor people, they're doing such a benefit. I don't know who she's talking about, who exactly the suffering of the poor people is helping, unless, like I said a little while ago, unless it's like she's like an energy vampire, unless she's helping her energy vampire buddies, like, suck up all this negative energy surrounding her and all of her endeavors. I don't know what it is, but it's very strange, and I don't like it. And I just feel very sad that I used to idolize this woman. This, you know what I mean? Like, this is why you shouldn't idolize anybody. You know what I mean? Because you know what I mean? We are all divine sparks. You know what I mean? We are all, special. And we shouldn't be looking up to people, especially, like, oh my God, such evil, sick people like this. I think it's fair just to look at, like, how they've portrayed people and just, like, go by the opposite of what they say. So, like, all the people who they've said have been bad are probably good, and all the good people they say have been good are probably bad. I mean, ain't that the truth? Like, it's just, you're going to have to start doing that in order to get anywhere close to what the truth is. It's very sad. But anyways, so, yeah, that's it. That's all I really had to say about Mother Teresa. Yeah, may she rest in peace, wherever she is. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully she didn't have to suffer too much for what she's done to everybody. But anyways, that's all I've got to say. Have a good day.